Imagine waking up and realizing something important is happening to your kidneys the moment body fat begins to let go, even before the scale moves. When fat starts releasing its grip, your kidneys are no longer forced to hold extra salt, extra water, and extra pressure just to keep up. That quiet shift means less strain on filtration, less internal stress, and a system that can finally breathe again. You don't see it in the mirror, but you may feel it as less puffiness, steadier energy, and fewer nights waking up to pee. And if you don't recognize what's changing inside your kidneys at this stage, you'll quit right before the real protection begins. That's why what happens after fat begins to let go matters more than most people realize. For years, excess fat quietly pushes the kidneys into a higher pressure, higher workload state that medicine describes as metabolic kidney stress long before any diagnosis is made. Nothing feels urgent at first because the system adapts, like a filter forced to run faster just to keep water flowing. Eventually, that adaptation shows up as puffiness, uneven energy, rising blood pressure, or broken sleep. What's rarely explained is how quickly some of that strain can ease once the right habits change. And that's where we're going next. First, in the first few days when fat begins to let go, the earliest kidney win often looks like a bathroom trip, not a smaller waistband. Your kidneys manage sodium like the bouncers of your bloodstream, and high insulin plus storage mode signals can nudge them to hold on to sodium and water. Reviews on insulin and the kidneys describe insulin's effects from glomerulus to tubule, and mechanistic work in proximal tubules shows insulin can stimulate sodium transport. When you tighten the inputs, less liquid sugar, fewer ultra-processed snacks, a real dinner instead of dinner plus a secret encore, many people notice they pee more, rings fit better, shoes feel less tight, and that puffy feeling backs off too. So don't dismiss this as just water weight. It's often your kidneys turning down the first dial. And don't be shocked if the scale sulks right here, because your kidneys can ease strain before fat loss shows up in pounds. Second, across week 1 to 2, blood pressure can start acting less like a drama queen and more like a boring spreadsheet, which is the highest compliment in medicine. There's solid evidence that hyperinsulinemia is linked to sodium and water retention and higher blood pressure, and obesity also interacts with systems like the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system that tighten vessels and encourage fluid retention. Translation: extra fat doesn't just sit there, it keeps texting your kidneys, hold more, squeeze more, work harder. As you keep the habit steady, walking most days, sleeping like it's part of the plan, and cutting sugary drinks, some people notice less swelling by evening and readings that stop bouncing. If things feel less spiky and more stable, that's progress, even if the scale is being emotionally unavailable. Third, in weeks 2 to 4, your kidneys can start stepping out of turbo mode. In obesity, the filtration units, glomeruli, often run at a higher flow rate, hyperfiltration, which can look great on paper because the number is high, but it's really over time with no vacation. A 2023 paper in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism reported that in people with obesity, filtration rises with body weight and is associated with albuminuria, suggesting early kidney injury. A 2024 review in Frontiers in Endocrinology summarizes that obesity is associated with higher renal blood flow, larger kidney volume, and higher eGFR, and that after major weight loss, about 26 kilograms on average in one dataset, those kidney hemodynamics and structural measures partially reverse. In real life, this phase feels like fewer afternoon crashes and less "my body is dragging a trailer" fatigue. And here's the counterintuitive win. A slightly lower filtration number can actually be good news if it means your kidneys are finally off the clock. Fourth, By weeks 3 to 6, you're changing the neighborhood around the kidneys, not just the kidneys themselves. Pararenal fat and renal sinus fat aren't just cushioning. They can take up space and amplify inflammatory signaling right next to kidney vessels and structures. Newer molecular profiling shows renal sinus fat can look more macrophage-enriched and inflammation-leaning than nearby perirenal fat, which helps explain why this location matters. A recent systematic review and meta-analysis in kidney and blood pressure research found perirenal fat thickness is closely associated with chronic kidney disease, which is a fancy way of saying fat that hugs your kidneys can be extra disruptive. When that kidney-adjacent fat begins to shrink, people often report less puffiness after salty meals, fewer nighttime bathroom trips, and sleep that actually feels like sleep. And if your nights get quieter, your kidneys are usually the first ones clapping. Fifth, around the 12-week mark, this is where the inside and the outside start agreeing with each other. A 2015 study in clinical and experimental nephrology tested a 12-week lifestyle program, diet plus aerobic and resistance training, in nearly 300 adults with metabolic risk and found the urinary albumin to creatinine ratio dropped significantly while eGFR stayed stable. This is also when consistency starts paying rent. Your waist often shifts, cravings calm down, and your energy stops doing that mid-afternoon nosedive. A lot of people don't feel kidney pain. They feel a calmer body first, and then the numbers follow. Your labs don't need to be perfect to prove you're moving in the right direction. Trends beat fantasy. Finally, from months 2 to 3 and beyond, fat letting go turns into long-term protection. Reviews of obesity-related kidney disease describe a vicious cycle where excess adiposity drives inflammation and metabolic stress that accelerates kidney damage. Breaking that cycle improves the big drivers: blood pressure, insulin resistance, and albuminuria. In higher-risk patients, the effects can be dramatic. A randomized clinical trial in JAMA Surgery, 100 patients with obesity, type 2 diabetes, and early CKD, reported albuminuria remission at 24 months in 82% after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass versus 55% with best medical treatment, with much lower average urine albumin to creatinine levels in the surgery group. And a PLOS-1 meta-analysis concluded bariatric surgery is associated with reductions in hyperfiltration, albuminuria, and proteinuria. The goal isn't punishment. It's creating conditions where your kidneys can do their job without living in emergency mode. Quick reality check. Because kidneys hate chaos, don't try to speed run this. Dehydration, crash diets, and extreme swings in protein or salt can make fluid balance wobble fast, especially if you already have kidney disease or take medications that affect blood pressure or water balance. The sweet spot is steady. Real food most of the time, a reasonable deficit, daily movement, and sleep that isn't a nightly cage match. The safest fat loss is the kind your kidneys can quietly thank you for long before the mirror has an opinion. What happens to your kidneys when fat begins to let go is honestly pretty simple. They stop getting squeezed by your daily habits. It's not some instant wow moment. You just start running a little smoother. You're less stuck in that cycle of "I'll start Monday" and more in "Okay, this is doable." So keep it objective. Don't chase fast loss, chase repeatable habits. Pick one lever this week, swap the sweet drinks, walk 10 minutes after dinner, or cut the late-night snack. Do it long enough that it becomes normal, not a project. Your kidneys won't send you a thank you text, but they will benefit from less constant strain over time. And that's the whole point. Protect the future version of you. Drop a comment with the one habit you're committing to and what usually knocks you off track. If this was useful, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a clear plan, not motivation quotes.